Welcome to Aspire. We're so grateful you chose to be with us. In just a few moments, I'm going to go out and talk about a very important subject on the Beatitudes as we continue in our series. Blessed are they that do hunger and thirst after righteousness. What does it mean to hunger and thirst? You know, there are times when our body does hunger and thirst, and the minute it has a need, we're there to fulfill it. But how about that moment when there's something deeper within us, when we just don't feel fulfilled within us, when everything's going the way we think it should be, and yet still there's that emptiness within? We're going to be dealing with that subject. And then in the second half of Aspire, we're going to have question and answer with our audience. And these are always lively and fun discussions. I have a very wonderful congregation, and I think you'll enjoy their insight and their love. So plan to be with us. Stay tuned for a half hour of insight, of love, and of energy. God bless. Stay tuned. Welcome to Aspire. We're so grateful that you chose to be with us. I want to thank you for being here, you brave souls. We're going to be continuing in our work on the Beatitudes, the most profound set of spiritual teachings that has ever been given to us. A lot of people think that the teachings of the masters, such as Jesus and Buddha, Lao-Tzu, and many others, were secrets, but they really weren't secrets. They were things that were given to us very openly. I love this work that Jesus gave to us on the Mount, and in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think that these are the greatest works that he ever offered to us. They're the greatest works because they offer us a sense of understanding of what it takes to walk the spiritual path. You know, people like religion with a lot of razzle-dazzle, with a lot of emotion. Everything's got to be emotional, and if there's not a lot of emotion in it, we lose it. We feel that emotion means meaning, but not necessarily so. Emotion often means, well, that we are overlooking something that is very valuable, something that is very real. It is important for us to understand something, that there is a longing and there is a hunger within us that we are ignoring. And a lot of times emotions do nothing more than cover that up. If we would look very sincerely, very quietly within our soul, we would see that there is a longing and a hunger within it that can only be satisfied through spirituality, by following the pathway spiritually. It will not be found in emotions or religions that have a lot of emotion to it, or obsessions with food or money or sex or drugs or the physical world. And one of the basic problems that we have is that we are obsessed with the physical world. We allow this need within our soul to go unanswered because we are so obsessed with the physical, deeply obsessed with the physical. Let me give you an example. Most of the day we spend in the taking care of, or the preservation, as I like to call it, of our physical anatomy, of our body. We care a great deal about our bodies. We care a great deal about our well-being in our bodies. And while someone might say, what's wrong with that? I say, nothing's wrong with that, except you have another self, another one over here that is very important. It is a side to you that you will always have. It will live with you for eternity. It is a very real part of us. This physical body will someday drop away. It's not always going to be there for us. So where should our emphasis be? I have this idea of this very compassionate man who had some very beautiful insights, standing on a mountain or little hill, talking to the people and offering some tremendous insight. The insight will come when he said, blessed are they that do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. What a beautiful attitude that is. And I wonder how many people hearing that even today understand what that's about. Blessed are they that do hunger and thirst. If you are quiet, if you are very still inside, you will see that there is a longing within you that can never be fulfilled through material gain. It will never be fulfilled through intellect either. It won't be fulfilled through what you do. I meet many people in my work, in my business. I counsel many people, and everybody is looking for something. Everybody wants something out of this life. They want something special. They want a healing. They think healing will make them happy. And yet they're not aware of what they are doing in this life? How can we want a healing, a healthy body, when we don't know how to use that body to express life? I have people who want the right mate, they want the right job, they want the right money, they want the right person, they want the right car. They're always looking for something in the physical to make them happy. What they don't realize is what is really eating at them inside is that they are not fulfilling their soul. It is a very beautiful moment when a person realizes the reason for their existence on this plane. We did not come to this world to suffer. We did not come here to deny ourselves. We came here to fulfill ourselves, as the Master said, to fulfill ourselves in a sense of understanding and of peace. Jesus made a comment once that I have always felt was very interesting. It's one that I'm sure annoyed many people, and in a way, what it did is it segregated people. I don't know if he meant to say that or not, or to segregate people, but he certainly did when he made the comment. He said, "Many are called, but few are chosen." That's a very true statement. All of us are called to this life to have happiness, to have fulfillment, to have joy, but very few of us listen to the source of that. The source is within ourselves. You're not here, and I'm not here, to make a name for ourselves. We're not here to just have all the physical things that we can have. We are here, as Jesus said, to have the life that is more abundant. How do we do that? We need to let go of some things before we can do that. We need to release. So much of life is surrendering. When we are deeply aware of what the reason is for life, it is because we are in tune with our soul. Let me explain to you. Your soul is that eternal part of you. It lives now and it has lived forever. It will continue on. The soul will remember the things that we have gained from our heart. It will forget about the things that we have in our mind. It will only be aware of the things that we gain from the Spirit of us. Therefore, let us concentrate on that for a moment. Think what it would be like in a day to spend a whole day in sincere focus on our soul. It would change everything about us. It would change everything in our life. And yet, we forget about that. If our body has a need, if our body's hungry, we feed it. And sometimes we feed it and feed it and feed it. And we overdo that and we think nothing of that. If our body is hurt, we go to a doctor. If the body of our life, so to speak, in relationships is hurting, we go and get some therapy or maybe some help. Or if we're lonely, we go and find someone. But when our soul aches, we don't do anything about it. We don't do anything about it when we hurt deep inside. And please remember, the part of us that hurts is the most important part. So how do we cure this? How do we heal it? Well, again, I say to you, many are called, but few have chosen to do the thing that will bring us the good. I'd like to give you some steps. Steps to, well, that hunger and thirsting and fulfilling it. Some of you have it out there in the TV audience. Some of you know just exactly what it is I'm talking about. And some of you in the studio audience, you know what I mean. It is the very reason for your study. The first thing is this: to have a deep respect for yourself as a spiritual being. You must remember, you are not a human being. You are not just a human being. You are a spiritual being, and you must respect that. Respect that you came to this planet for very noble, courageous reasons. You came that you would grow in this life. We chose this world. We chose this experience. Yes, we even chose our own parents. And we choose everything down the line. It is a matter of how we choose within ourselves, what we choose to be. Respect your soul. If your body's hungry, you sense it. If your body is ill, you sense it. Now, how about your spiritual self? When you are aware that there is something wrong in your life, don't look to your intellect. Don't look just to your emotions. Look to your soul. What's going on inside of there? Have we neglected it? Are we ignoring the things that need to be taken care of? You know, Jesus said something once to the Pharisees and the Sadducees that I thought was very interesting. He said, you clean the outside of the cup, and you make that look good, but it's the inside of the cup that is left dirty. And that is where the wickedness is, as he said. He said that we miss the point. You know, if religion were really to serve our purposes, our higher purposes, it would teach us how to live from within ourselves out. If we look at religion the way we have, well, formulated it and created it in this culture, we can see that we create religion. We create it so our conduct will be right. We create it so our attitudes will be right, but inside there's still that uneasiness. Live from within inside out. The second thing, when you start practicing living from your soul, you will see that love is the most necessary thing that you achieve. No, not emotional love. Not the emotional love of your mind, but the love of your heart. And the love of our heart is unconditional. When we are working from our soul, we're working from unconditional love. That means everything in our mind will change. We will never hold on to anger. We will never hold on to fear. We will forgive quickly. We will have compassion quickly. We will never allow ourselves to hold on to anything that would hurt us or defile us in any way. When you're working with your soul, you're working with the harmony of life. The third thing, very important, that we lower that resistance we have to change. When a person starts living from the depths of themselves, what I call the soul begins to turn. And the soul turns from being outwardly oriented to being inward oriented. As it is now, our souls are outward. We're always looking for happiness outside of ourselves. We think, if I got that car, I'd be happy. If I got that job, I'd be happy. If I had that money, I'd be happy. If I had that person in my life, I'd be happy. What makes you think so? You see, when the soul turns inside, it becomes aware of itself, and it realizes that happiness and bliss only are caused due to compassion and love. The teachings on the Mount are very beautiful. Blessed are they that do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. This is the most important lesson we will ever learn in life. It is the most valid. It means that we hunger and thirst to heal ourselves, to be aware, not to intellectually fill our minds up to, but to be aware within our soul. I know there must be many questions that you might have about the subject of to hunger and thirst. And there's probably many questions you've had prior to that on other discourses that we've given on Aspire. Right now, as soon as we break here, just for a moment, we're going to come back and have some question and answers with our studio audience. I hope you'll return and be with us. We have some exciting discourses and some sharing to do. Thank you for being with us. And thank you very much. Thank you. In receiving some of your letters, we found out that you wanted to hear a little bit more of the discourses and maybe have some question and answer. We thought that was such a good idea that we thought we'd work with some question and answers. At the end of every Sunday talk that I give here at Unity of Escondido, I always leave it open for questions. I'm always sure that I left something left undone, and I'm always interested in seeing where my audience is and maybe in helping them. We talked in this particular discourse about a very important point, about leaving our past behind, about letting go, about finding a need within our soul for some sort of fulfillment. So we have questions from our audience, and I'll take the first one right now. Eleanor.
How does one go about lowering resistance to change?
Oh, powerful question. How do we lower our resistance to change? First of all, we have to remember that change is the only necessity and certainty of life. And we lower our resistance to change by practice. First of all, it comes this way. To lower our resistance, we have to understand there is no goal in change. Sometimes we can lower our resistance in change if we think that there's something out there that's better for us. But what if we don't know that there's something better yet for us? The best way to do it is to understand that you are letting go of burdens. Every change that you make is a letting go of another burden. Do you remember the story about the man who had a girlfriend and she was very tall? Do you remember this one I told you? And they would be walking along and he said to her, "How about a kiss?" And she says, well, okay. So she was so tall, he saw over in the corner an anvil, and he went over and he brought the anvil down and he sat it down and he stood on it and he gave her a kiss. And that was okay. So they went on a little further and he said, how about another one? And she said, no way. He said, well, I guess there's no reason then to carry this anvil anymore, is there? So he throws the anvil away, and that's kind of the way change is. We can make change easy if we throw away the dead weight, if we realize that through change we're letting go of dead weight. Don't try to predict where your changes are going to go. Let me also take it in another route. The more you trust God, and the more you take time to trust in God, the more changes you will make quickly. When your goal is enlightenment, and your goal is no longer to obtain things or to own things, but to have a sense of enlightenment, freedom quickly necessitates the need to lower resistance. That's a major key in it. Another question?
Greg, I'm aware that there are many in the viewing audience that may not be familiar with the expansiveness and the all-encompassing nature of your teaching. I would like for you to address the statement of Jesus when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and none can come to the Father except by me.
What a powerful concept. We have blown this particular statement, and her question is so powerful. I am the way, the truth, and the light, and no man can go unto God except through me. Christianity has accepted that literally, and they have said, in essence, the only way to go to God is through Jesus, but that's not what he was talking about. He was never talking about himself, Jesus the man. He was talking about his Christ nature. And there is something very beautiful about that. No one of us can ever obtain God or be one in God until we practice Christ consciousness. Jesus as the Christ was the way to God. Jesus as a man was no different than me or you. The difference is that Jesus always sought to obtain that Christ consciousness, never dealing with himself as a personality. Jesus never dealt with himself as that. He always referred to himself as a spiritual being. And what, in essence, he's saying is this. And do you remember the little statement he made? He said, many of you will say in the last days, I talked about you, I prophesied about you, I believed in you. And Jesus said, but I will not know you. I will not recognize you. Because he was saying, you have taken the work too literally. We are not literally supposed to look at Jesus the man and say, through this man, but rather through the teachings that the man offered that leads us to the Christ experience in him as well as in us. It is a very difficult subject to talk about because people are emotional about it. We have a hard time separating the man from the Spirit, Jesus from the Christ. But before you can understand Jesus, you have to separate them. Jesus was a man, a full-fledged person. He had a body like we have. He could have failed. He could have made mistakes. Maybe he did. Maybe we don't know anything about that. I personally feel he did. But he rose above that at all times, and he was always aware of his spiritual side, his Christ nature side. The only way to God is through the Christ. Now, if you're in a different country, maybe Japan or the Far East, the same thing might be said of Buddha nature. Buddha nature means the same thing as Christ nature. It's all a matter of semantics. Your question is magnificent because it deals with a very important point. That you and I will not know God through our intellect, through emotionalism, and through attachment to a man who lived 2,000 years ago. Only by living the teachings that he taught do we come near God. Very important. Thank you for that question. It was magnificent. Shows depth. Robert.
What is the difference between soul and heart?
Soul and heart. Very interesting question. To be honest with you, there really is no real difference. Our soul is something that is a part of us. It's the eternal side of us. It's the part of us that has always lived. It's the part of us that is aware and living in this now moment. The heart of us lives within the soul. It is the wisdom of us. Wisdom is very important. Wisdom goes beyond knowledge. I can have a knowledge of anything. I can have the knowledge of the Quran, the Upanishads, the Bible. There are many people today who are biblical scholars. And many people think that those people are well-learned or knowledgeable, and their knowledge makes them an authority. I say no. You may think you're an authority, but your heart is the only real authority to life. Your heart is the thing that brings forth wisdom, and wisdom always transcends knowledge, always transcends intellect. I think we need more wisdom in this world. I don't think we need more intellect. I don't think we need more Bible scholars. I don't think we need more people who can spit out Bible verses and put them in places where they seem appropriate. I think we need a loving touch. Our soul is that eternal side of us, and what we are seeking to do is take the soul and have it become one with our heart. And when that occurs, we become the Christ. It's a very subtle thing that occurs. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's not something that one would look at as a religious experience. It is a spiritual experience. It happens in silence. When nobody is watching, when nobody is listening, when you least expect it, it arises within us. Good question. Arthur.
Must we feel the futility of life before we turn inward?
Oh, Arthur, what a question. Must we feel the futility of life before we know life? Was that the question? Before we turn inward? Well, we don't need to do that. I mean, it's not a necessity. But futility and pain are our two greatest teachers. The greatest lessons that I have ever learned in my life are through futility and through pain. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it happens. And I don't think we should be angry about that. I don't think we should be feeling like we are failures about that. We are not a failure because we need a lot of pain in our life. I like what Fred said earlier on in a couple of programs. He said when he was talking about his cancer, he said he needed to have a 2x4 hitting before he got serious about loving himself, serious about God. And to be honest with you, that's the way most of us are. We need a problem before we can realize life. So now is the time to kind of take a look at ourselves. Do we need a problem? If you need problems to find God, fine, learn that way. I've learned that way, and I think many of you have learned that way. But it's not necessary. The other way, the alternative to that, is to meditate, to sit in quiet contemplation or silence and to listen to the silence. It's truly the most easy way. But while all of us are not on that level, let's learn the way we learn. Learn lovingly, learn compassionately, and always with a sense of humor. For goodness sakes, laugh at yourself. What's left to do in this moment but to love and to laugh? I want to thank you for being with us for this segment of Aspire, and I want to thank all of you who are with us. Thank you.